Hey beautiful people, my name's Kristen. Thank you for stopping by my channel. I am going to talk about the books that I read in the month of April and give my reviews and thoughts. So my first goal is to read classic, a nonfiction, and a new release. So my classic was The House on Mango Street, Sandra Cisneros. And this is a story of a young girl in New York. She has been an immigrant, and I thought it was going to tell more about the immigration story, but it really focuses just on her life on this street in kind of the urban lifestyle, her observations, and it is told in very, very short chapters, sometimes only a few paragraphs. It's almost poetry, and it's not necessarily a continuous flow of a story. It's more like individual snapshots or thoughts, and it is told again very in this poetic kind of prose, and so it's really, really good and really, really engaging. I wasn't really anticipating that or expecting that. It was quite different than what I had started out thinking it was going to be, but I really, really enjoy it and appreciate it. Give it a good 4 stars. I think this is solid. It's super small. It is being used in a lot of the local schools as kind of English, writing poetry and teaching, or not necessarily poetry, but teaching English and discussions in that subject, which I think is a great thing. For my new release from my Book of the Month Club, I got True Biz by Sara Novic. So this is a novel that is told about, it's based on history and historical, so it's historical fiction because the characters themselves did not exist, but the incidences and things that are happening to them are what the author is trying to get us to understand. And it's basically around deaf schools that are specifically geared for those that are hearing impaired. Their families might be hearing or not hearing, and so it follows the stories of 3 main characters, and then there's a couple others. And what I loved is, let me see if I can find it real quick. At the beginning of each chapter, there is the letter of the first name. So Charlie's chapters would have the C, and February's chapters would have the F, and Austen's A. Austen's chapters would be A, and so we would go through and you would know, and I'd start looking at the symbols and it would start to click just a little bit in my mind. And then at the end of about every 3rd or 4th chapter, let me see if I can find one, there would be like some more explanations or signs or descriptions about what things meant, and just a really great understanding for somebody who doesn't know sign language but is interested in knowing more sign language, how it's a different thought process. When we learn a new language, although I have failed every time I've tried to learn a new language and become fluent in a new language anyway, we all process and communicate a little differently. Some languages go left to right, right to left. They're symbolic. They give thoughts of entire phrases instead of breaking it down word by word. And so it was just great, the explanations that were given in this, but it's a very engaging story. So you're following a girl that is trying to fit in. She has not fit in the regular public school system and goes to a special school for the deaf. She has not been brought up signing, so she is very behind everybody else in learning how to communicate through sign language. And so she's kind of taken under the wing of this boy Austen, who has been in this world his entire life. His parents are both deaf, bringing him up in this world as well. And then February is the administrator who is trying to deal with a lot of the bigger systematic issues and stories and letting us know the behind the scenes kind of things that are happening. And overall, this is kind of a message advocating for these schools and existing, and the back, it clearly talks about the struggles of these schools. And so that is the agenda. And the context of it, but I just thought it was really, really engaging. I learned a lot. I really liked it. I definitely give it 4.5 stars. I think that if you have any interest in that at all, that this is well worth picking up and looking at and spending some time with. And then next on my list, I read Texas by James Michener. I originally thought this was a nonfiction account, but it's really more a historical fiction writing. It goes through, the whole thing is designed, this is only volume 1, so I've got a whole nother 600-700 pages to read, but it goes through like a board that is just like a school board, education board that is trying to decide how to teach Texas history. And so they're going through each chunk of the major movements within Texas history, and it's told by the different characters in their kind of first person. So each section goes into a new character telling that story about what basically it was like to live or to experience whatever that was. And so the first kind of part was a little bit slow to get into for me personally, but then what was also brilliant by James Michener is that he ties it back in. So like later, something that happens later in history, they reflect back, or they even pick up, or they reference even the characters that were in that first part of the story. And some of them are actual historical people that actually existed, and then there are the fictitious people that we're experiencing that through. And so this book goes all the way through Santa Anna and the Alamo and all that kind of good stuff that I have been very much rereading and loving and all that. And I look forward to getting to the next volume for some more modern, up to my lifetime background of it. But overall, I ended up really, really getting into this. At first, the first kind of section, I was like, this is maybe not exactly what I was hoping it would be. And then it really, really got there and really got me. And there were several characters that I got very invested in and just wanted to see how they were going to struggle through these pioneering and these hard times and deal with all of that. So if you have interest in that kind of stuff, that's great. For my nonfiction, when I realized that wasn't a true nonfiction, I put it out to you, my viewers, and asked you to pick another nonfiction for me. And the winner was Jane Austen's Writer Club. And so this is a novel that is a nonfiction kind of looking at the works of Jane Austen and putting it together in how do you craft a well-written novel. And even Jane Austen writing letters to people who were trying to also be authors or authors with her, were taking advice to one another. So it's actual advice that she gave to people who were trying to write, as well as taking pieces of her work and then analyzing how she had made plots and characters and settings and all these kind of good things, right? So the only disclaimer I will give is that they went through 6 of her major works, and I realized quickly that I had read 4 of the 6, but I had not read Mansfield Park and one others. I had read Persuasion, Sense and Sensibility, and Pride and Prejudice, and Emma. I've read those. So when there was a large excerpt of something, I stopped reading the ones that I hadn't read because they became spoilers. I realized quickly, I don't want to know that. I have to read that one still, right? So I did skip those sections, but it was plenty just to read over the sections that I had read. So that would be my only thing, is if you have not read Jane Austen and you want to, this would be a spoiler for Jane Austen. So read her books first, or be prepared to kind of skip those sections of the ones that you haven't read. But it was fascinating because in my mind, I was thinking about this and this structuring or whatever when I actually was reading some of my other books for the month, and it was actually really helpful in formulating some of my thoughts and processing. I read Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. I have a hard time saying her name even though it's simple. Sorry about that. But this was read in a book club book read with Gemma at Gemma Books. And I just had such a good time. It was a group of about 14 of us that were reading this together on Voxer, leaving voice messages for one another. And that was the first time I had ever even been on that app. It was so much fun and really enhanced my experience. This is a lovely story of kind of an entire family legacy, if you will, that kind of starts grandparents and parents and children and then grandchildren and just going down through the generations. And it's following a Korean family as they immigrate and spend time in Japan, and just the tensions. And even the author was acknowledging in her after notes that she had had a lot of observations about the Koreans and Japanese and their interactions and struggles over time. And so she was really speaking into that and putting in a lot of even things that she had personally witnessed, and then writing it around fictitious new characters that are just so beautifully written. You just get very heartfelt invested, and you are rooting for them and hoping for the hard things that they're going through to pay off. And sometimes it happens, sometimes it does not. And so it is an emotional kind of slow burn plot that is sucking you in, and you have to really savor the moments and the descriptions and the atmosphere and the journey. And I did. I really appreciate a book like that. So this one was really, really great for me. Close to a 5-star, really. My only struggles is giving you that is kind of almost a spoiler. I'll just say that the end, and maybe I think it did what the author needed it to do, but it's a little catch that stops it from being fully 5-star perfect for me personally. And then, like I was saying, the Jane Austen Writers Club, one book that absolutely is going along right with Jane Austen's advice is The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. He just has written this fantasy world like he understood and took notes from Jane Austen, and maybe he did. We don't know where he got his training. Well, I don't know where he got his training. I'm sure people who know Robert Jordan know where he got his training. But this is the first book in the massive series that has started Wheel of Time. I have not seen it, but I am going to see it. I was waiting till I finished reading it, and technically I have about 150 pages of an 800-page book. I think it's actually 789. Does that count as a mammoth if it's 11 short? It probably doesn't, but it's close to a mammoth, y'all. So I am close to getting done with it, and I have enough, I think, to give you, I don't do spoilers, so I have enough to give you an honest opinion that this is a really fun read. I do not enjoy every single fantasy book I read, but this one is really good, and it goes along with all the best kind of stuff. There's a journey, there is three young boys that we are following. We do not know why everybody is after them or exactly what their background is. We find out quickly that they don't necessarily have the parentage or the backgrounds that we think that they do. They don't even know we're on this big quest with magical creatures. There's ravens and wolves and all the typical stuff, all the stuff that's kind of familiar in the fantasy realm, but then it's introduced in familiar yet unique ways. And I can hang with that. So it's taken me a little longer to read it, just because a first book you kind of have to catalog all the characters, all the places, all the magic systems, everything that's going on. So it takes a while to establish it up, but I'm ready to read through the Wheel of Time. And I particularly love that concept of time and about myth and legacy and things coming to fulfillment. I love all that kind of stuff. So I probably should have read it sooner, but it's intimidating to start a series that's so intense, right? These are the books that I read in the month of April. I have a couple days of April left. This will probably get published on a couple days from now. So hopefully I'll be done with that book then. I can go on to my May reads. And I appreciate if you have read any of these to let me know how you liked them. If you want to read any of them now because of the review or what you've heard, leave me a comment and let me know so I can journey along with you, because it's this journey and this process that is so intensely fulfilling and satisfying. Thank you for being part. I really appreciate it. Y'all have an awesome day.